Okay. All right. So I'm really excited to go through this, how to engineer your menu to increase sales and profitability using our 5S framework. My team and I have done an amazing job here to put together kind of actionable examples of what we've done for other restaurants. I think we have like 17 or 18 different concepts and menus that we've done that kind of can tell you guys, the different ways that we're helping drive profitability and sales through the menu. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have some really great ideas that you can take away and obviously use for your restaurant as well. So today's agenda, we're going to be going through our 5S framework for a well-engineered menu, which is strategy, structure, suggest, sell, and story. We're going to reverse engineer menu designs from our portfolio of existing clients. We're going to show you how you can incorporate probably the most difficult S, which is story, into your strategy so you can decommoditize your restaurant and create a unique experience for your guests. And then we're going to finish with our signature case study, how a 9-location restaurant group increased sales of their signature item by 172% in just 90 days through the re-engineering of their menu. So first, a little bit about us. Some of you know us, some of you don't. We've been since 2012 working with restaurant groups to drive profitability and sales through their menu. Everything that we do as far as menu design and all the menu designs you're going to see are done by our full-time creative team using the 5S framework. We don't use any subcontractors or freelancers. And everything we design is created specifically for the brand. So we don't use any templates. We don't reuse any designs. So everything you're going to see today is completely custom built from scratch for the restaurant. So I think it's important first to talk about kind of what's happening at the table. Now, in a perfect world, your servers are all rock stars, right? They're creating an emotional connection with your customer. They are product experts and they consult your customer to the ideal dish. They are aware of which dishes will create the most profitability for your restaurant, and they never call out sick, and they never quit, and they're never late, right? Again, perfect. The reality is that your servers are leaving money on the table, even your rock stars. So what's crazy is the average employment length of a restaurant employee is 56 days. And in that time, new hires need to get trained, not just on the menu, but as fast as possible, all areas of the business. And the reality is upselling requires detailed product knowledge, finesse, practice and repetition, and there's a certain amount of nuance as well. And even rock stars get busy, right? You can't be in 2 places at once. So what happens is that servers wind up becoming order takers and not menu sellers. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that a properly engineered menu can actually bridge the gap and solve some of these problems. So we want to follow our 5S framework to success. The first S is strategy, is outlining a clear game plan for success. So some of you might have seen this before. This is, we did not invent this. This has been around for decades. This is just a way to basically categorize your menu items based on profitability and popularity. So there's stars, dogs, puzzles, and plow horses. Now the goal is for everything to be a star. That's high profitability and high transaction count. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's dogs. These are low profitability and low transaction count. You're paying your people to prep it. You're paying to store it. You're paying them to throw it out, right? And then in between, you have puzzles and plow horses. Now, puzzles are great because they have the profitability, but for some reason, they're not selling. And then plow horses have the other problem. They are selling, but they're not as profitable. So when we're talking about a strategy and re-engineering the menu, we want to make sure we understand which category each menu item falls into. Now, how do we use the data? Well, stars, we want to recognize these as signature items and highlight them on the menu. Puzzles, we want to rebrand or relocate these items to encourage people to try them. For some reason, they're not selling. Maybe it's the way they're named. Maybe it's where they live on the menu. Maybe they're not prominent enough. Maybe we need a better description. So we need to relocate or rebrand these items so that people are willing to try them. Plow horses is really kind of you as the restaurant going back to the drawing board and going through the 7 Ps of restaurant marketing: product, prep, production, portion, presentation, packaging, and positioning, and trying to determine how you can take this popular dish and make it work for you. Do you serve it on a smaller plate? Is it a smaller protein? Is it a different side? What can you do to convert this plow horse into a star? And then finally, dogs you want to remove or reimagine. These are costing you money. And a lot of times there's a sentimental connection between the restaurant owner and the item. It's Uncle Vinny's chicken parm. I used to have it every Sunday. It's delicious. It fills you up. Problem is it's expensive to prepare. And then no one's ordering it. So now you're just literally paying people to throw it out. When it comes to, I think, common problems for restaurants that menu engineering can solve, I also think there's kind of 2 buckets here. There's operations and brand identity. So it could be that your servers are too busy or shy to upsell. It could be that the design of your menu is confusing and overwhelming to your guests. Maybe your guests are just not ordering the items that make you unique. Maybe you have high turnover or part-time staff, and you need the menu to be a product training tool. Then on the branding and identity side, maybe you're just looking to reinforce your brand identity on your printed menu. Maybe you're looking to preserve your culture as you expand to more locations and markets. Maybe you're wasting company resources designing and managing menus in-house. Maybe you're just tired of contracting designers who just don't get it. So we find that usually when we're re-engineering a menu, we're solving one or some or all of these problems for a restaurant. So I think that's the number one. That's why it's the first S. The number one thing is strategy. If you're going to invest the time and the resources and the money to really look at this project, you want to understand what business objectives you're trying to solve for, as well as the economics of your existing menu. From there, we go to the second S, which is structure. We want to eliminate friction and streamline the decision. So an example of poor structure here, this is a menu that sort of reads like a dictionary. It's got a long list of items. It's difficult to read, sort of strains the eyes. And this kind of creates some friction and can tend to overwhelm the customer. Another thing that we see a lot is too much of a good thing. So too many photos, graphics, illustrations, colors, fonts. If everything stands out, it's like the menu is yelling at the customer, and it can be overwhelming. We also see kind of the workbook. So fragmented information displayed across multiple pages. Customers need to flip back and forth between pages. They need to remember what was on the previous page and go back and forth. And again, it's a lot of bandwidth for the guest. And then finally, the collection. So a brunch menu, a lunch menu, a cocktail menu, a price fix menu, a beer list, a cocktail list. The customer is bombarded with different menus, and again, can start to be overwhelming. So the dictionary example is actually a customer of ours called John and Molly's Pub. And when we redid the menu, one of the things we wanted to make sure was we had clear categories. So I can look at the redesigned menu and I can see within an instant, cheesesteak sandwiches, wraps, burgers, they got wings. It's very easy to sort of digest it, and easy for me to navigate from each category to category. The workbook was actually a customer of ours in Manhattan called El Castillo de Hagua. What we did for them was we were actually able to consolidate everything to one sheet. So again, we have clear categories, but everything's on one sheet now. So they're able to, at a glance, see all of the things that the restaurant offers and then make a decision without a lot of friction. And this last one is El Barrio, which is a fast casual taco place. I think they have 4 locations up in Boston. And what we did with them is we just kind of made it a little bit more of a clear hierarchy, right? So you have your item sections, you have your standout items, but not everything is kind of yelling at you. And I think the idea here is that the easier it is for your guests to make a decision, the more decisions they're going to make, and the more that's going to drive up the ticket. The next S is suggest. We want to highlight the items that you want guests to try. So this is a customer of ours, Akai Lounge. I think they have 3 locations. They're a sushi concept. This was their menu before. And again, this sushi bar entree section is not telling me what I should try if I want to try something for the first time and see what this place is all about. So what we did is we broke out their 2 most popular dishes, the chef's special sushi dinner and the omakase, into separate boxes, and it acts as sort of an eye magnet so people can see that these are a little bit different. Now, you can't put a box around everything because then you're sort of defeating the whole purpose. You're going back to too much of a good thing. So what we also do is more of a subtle suggestion, which is we take the logo, we put it next to certain items that we want to let people know are our customer favorites, right? So the real standout signature item gets a box. Maybe you have one or two items, and then from there we can be a little bit more generous with those logos and let people know that these are fan favorites. You can also use illustrations. So like this margaritas here as an eye magnet, even like a dessert section. So in this situation, they actually used an illustration and they used a box. And again, it just drives people's eyes to that specific section or item. You can also do it for dietary preferences and allergies, right? So we want to make sure that we clearly display that items contain nuts, or we want to clearly display that it's vegetarian friendly, or it can be made gluten-free, or it's a house favorite. So putting icons next to certain items to drive guest preference is important too, because then I feel like I'm able to find what I need as a picky eater. The next S is sell. So we want to feed the imagination, we want to upsell and give people the option to personalize. So I think what happens a lot with menus that come to us, especially when people are designing it themselves, is they can't fit everything on one sheet. And the first thing to go are those like long embellished descriptions, right? And those can start to sell the dish. But if you cut those out, you're kind of not selling the dish the way that you should. So when we redid this one, we had the chuletas frita. Instead of saying fried pork chops, it's pork chops fried until golden and crispy on the outside, juicy and tender on the inside. And one of the benefits of working with the professional designer is we're able to fit all of this content, but without overwhelming the guest. So this is a customer of ours, Rangoon. They actually have home-style Burmese cuisine, and they have a couple of locations in the city. And what I like about this example is I think people are wanting a unique experience. They're wanting to try something different, but they don't want to be intimidated. So what Rangoon did really well was kind of really tap into the cultural authenticity with some of the names, the Kayar Sen, Sichet, and the Miche noodle. Some of these things that you've never heard of, but so I'm feeling like I'm being daring, but at the same time, I understand what has nuts, what has shellfish. I understand what's spicy. I understand what's in each of these dishes. So that's what kind of gets me over the hump. And I think if you want to be unique and you want to offer unique items, it's going to separate you from the place down the street, but you also have to make it approachable, or else it could be a little intimidating. So this is a Mexican concept down in Miami called Taquerias El Mexicano. And this was their specialty menu before we redid it. And what we did here is we wanted to make sure that their molcajete trio was standing out. So we did two things here. One, we put them in a box. We put the item in a box. So now it's an eye magnet. And then we added great for sharing. So the idea here is that, you know, if two people are on a date, maybe that's a little bit too much to share. But if you have 4, 6, 8 people, maybe they're starting out with a couple of trios to get started, a couple of cocktails, right? And you're just sort of painting the experience for them, and you're making it much easier. So you can throw a couple of these on the table while everyone decides what they want. So this is Toast Coffee and Kitchen, and what we did with them was actually use an illustration as an eye magnet to upsell an item. So on the menu above, that was their initial menu. And then we added actually an illustration of an organic farm fresh egg for $1.50 upsell. And I think a big mistake people make, they use illustrations and they use like these fun photos, but they're not contextual. So what we wanted to do is make sure that we put this egg right next to the avocado toast, because the idea is that you'll get the avocado toast and you'll add the egg on top of it. We don't want an illustration just for the sake of having an illustration, because then you have an eye magnet that's drawing people to something that is not really actionable, that's not part of your business model. I think it's also important that you give people the opportunity to personalize. So we have like these section modifiers or these section upsells, and we want to make them nice and clear. So we have our salads and bowls, and then nice and clearly displayed underneath. You can add chicken, you could add shrimp, you could add salmon. A lot of times we see these either on the other side of the menu or all the way at the bottom of the menu. We want these to be near where the decision is being made. Another thing that we highly recommend too is if you're carrying certain items and they're available like for a substitution, why not build out a more robust sides section and then offer it as a side? I have a friend of mine that always gets French fries as a side, no matter what. So people might want to get a side in addition to what they're getting. Maybe they were going to get the corned beef and hash. They decided to get something else. They still want that corned beef hash, so now they can get it as a side. And then going back to kind of the wait staff, empowering the wait staff, they can look at that list of sides too and see that those are options as well. The other thing we like is build your own. People are willing to spend a few extra bucks in order to personalize their order. So we have a burger, you can add the toppings. There's an upsell for mushrooms. You can add bacon, avocado. You can go crazy with this. You know, some people will probably just add cheese, but you give them the ability to modularly build up their order and build up your margin. This is sort of a build your own concept that was really confusing. This was like a Mexican concept. And the idea, I think, was for you to choose the style first: bowl salad, quesadillas, nachos, chimichanga, and then the protein and the extras. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of illustrations. It's a little bit overwhelming. So when we redid it, we wanted to make it very, very easy to digest. So number one, you choose your preparation. Number two, you choose your protein, and there's upsells built into that: steak, fish, shrimp. Number three, add extras. And again, there's upsells built into that. So we sort of guide them through it in a way that's digestible, and they're happy to spend a few extra bucks to customize it and get it their way. Another thing we did here with this taco plate section is we actually added an option for 6 tacos, right? So if 2 people are going out and they were thinking about getting 3 tacos each, we can align their ordering and they can get 6 tacos for 28. So now they're getting a deal. Again, we put great for sharing. And the other thing we did here is we did the sides 3 for $9. So on the original one, there was no deal on the sides, but now the sides are 3 for $9. So what I'm going to want to do as the consumer is I'm going to want to beat the system. I'm going to get the most expensive sides to get the most value for the $9, right? So now I feel like, man, we're sharing these tacos, we're getting a discount, and we're getting a ton of sides. I feel like I beat the system. Meanwhile, my ticket is going up and up and up. And they're just playing by the rules of the restaurant anyway. So it creates that perceived value in the eyes of the customer, and everybody's happy. So the last S is story, infusing your brand story to create a unique experience. And I think this is the most difficult because the other S's are very like cut and dry. They're sort of like nuts and bolts. The story is a much more fluid, kind of living, breathing thing. So I wanted to really go deep on this and give some good examples of how you can use your story to create a unique experience, and also how you could even come up with a story for your restaurant. The stories are the connective tissue and the secret sauce of your brand. People buy from who they know, like, and trust. It leads to an emotional connection, which leads to loyalty. And it leads to no connection leads to commoditization and comparison shopping. So telling your story makes it harder for customers to compare you to your competitors because you're driving that unique experience. And the biggest mistake people make is the discounted marketing. So this is a Groupon for a restaurant offering aged tomahawk steak with seafood pairings for 35% off, which just sounds wrong. And what's going to happen is you're going to get the wrong customers for the wrong reasons. You're going to attract customers who value you the least. They're going to say, well, even if it sucks, at least it's 35% off. We'll just never go back there, right? What you really want to do is create an emotional connection with potential customers and change their perception of the brand. Man, we got to try that place. I keep hearing about it. I keep seeing it. I read their story. It looks really cool. I'm less concerned with how much things cost. I want to go get that unique experience. So great stories create emotional ROI. So we have the 4 R's of a powerful story. Number one, it resonates with the consumer. Number two, they remember the story and it stays with them after they consume it. Number three, they repeat it and they tell everybody else about it. And when it's really done well, it reverberates throughout time and generations, and that's how you build that brand equity. So I have a couple of different examples here that are kind of fun. This is just a very tired photo of pastrami for National Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day. And I'm sure we're all guilty of this. We take a picture of the thing, we put it up on social, and that's our marketing strategy, for the day. But here's an example of how we can kind of twist that into a fun story. Now, obviously, the creative is better. But now we have a food battle that's raged for over a century, and it's a poll, pastrami or corned beef. And what you're doing is you're creating some emotional connection. People are going to get in the game and they're going to say, well, I don't know, like I like pastrami, you like corned beef. What about Italian? And the result is engagement. So when your content entertains, educates, and informs, you create more engagement and people start talking about it. And this is actually a campaign we partnered with Greater Long Island, the news organization. But they have the comments to show that this poll, this pastrami versus corned beef poll, generated a bunch of different people. I'm a fan of both. I'd have the pastrami. I like the corned beef. I'll have Italian cold cuts. So it's just a more fun, engaging way to promote your stuff. A lot of times what we'll do too is we'll take a nice picture of, say, oysters, and we'll say, happy hour starts now, oysters 12 for 20 bucks. Again, everybody's doing that. There's no story behind it. So what about telling the story of Chuck, the guy who works at the oyster farm, who's out there every morning at 5 a.m., straining his back just for you. And while you're sleeping, he's out there picking the oysters for the day. You say to yourself, man, I really want to go try Chuck's oysters, right? I'm less concerned with the discount. I want to go for the experience. This is National Chocolate Day, free chocolate brownie. Again, very commoditized. You're gonna kind of attract the wrong kind of people. So we could spin it into the story of the sous chef who cooks up 1,000 chocolate brownies every month. It's a family recipe. Brownies are in her blood. She started whipping it up at 5 a.m., blah, 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 and really tell the story of how the brownies are made and create that emotional connection. Trivia night is a common one. Prizes for top places, trivia night every Thursday. Well, what about kind of highlighting the trivia host? Actor and comedian Jack Miller and his wife moved here from Charleston, South Carolina. And he's a fledgling actor, but in the meantime, we get, all of his talent right up the road every Tuesday night. Happy hour every day from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. How about Meet the Bartender? We had the liveliest happy hour in town. Meet Lauren Beckles. She grew up right down the street. She went to high school. Her favorite drink is the classic margarita. She uses a family recipe. You won't find it anywhere else. And I wanted to give some examples of kind of different ways to tell your story, like from an origin point of view as well. Like those were sort of like gimmick stories. How do you really have a more brand equity story that you can build? So this is Taproom, the story of two broke bartenders that have now built an empire, right? So you can tap into rags to riches, hardship. Even fire couldn't stop this family from bringing back the Farmingdale Diner. The new chef launches Braun's Kitchen, right? So we can highlight a chef. Ingredients, let's start a food fight, American or Italian heroes. Family, they opened Menino's and Comac as kids, and now look at them. So these are kind of different examples of how you can use story to create a unique experience. I want to go to the place where the two broke bartenders started out. I want to go to the place that burned down and rebuilt. I want to go to the place where this chef is curating this brand new menu. And then this last example here, Near's Tavern, I think is really the best story menu we've ever done. They've been around since 1829, and what we're tapping into with them is history. And I think if you have the history, whether it's the history of the building, the history of the family, the history of the recipe, as the further back you can go, the more nostalgia and heritage and history you can create, the more powerful and the more of a unique experience you can make. So this is Near's Tavern. They're located in Queens. I think they're one of the oldest restaurants in New York City. Uh, Part of the movie Goodfellas was shot here. This is where they had their little social club. Their mahogany bar is 150 years old. It used to be a bowling alley. There used to be a racetrack, a horse track across the street, which is why they have that in their logo. Enormous amount of history. So when we redid their menu, this is the redesign of the menu. When we redid the menu, we wanted to make sure that we incorporated the story. So number one, we put the story right there on the menu. And we did a short story like teaser, and then we put a QR code which links people to the website where they could read the entire lineage and the entire story. And then we found the oldest photo that we could find, and we put that story, or we put the photo there with the story as well. When we were designing the menu, we used like old racetrack programs from Churchill Downs, old tickets, which inspired kind of the borders and the fonts. And we kind of have this Prohibition / Churchill Downs vibe going on that pays homage to their history. And I think what's really great about Nears, and this kind of brings the whole thing together, is their signature item, which is their Goodfella burger, named one of the top 10 burgers in New York. And it's a popular item, so we placed it in a box, number one. Number two, it has an illustration which acts as an eye magnet to reinforce its popularity. Number three, the item name drives the brand story, right? It's the Goodfella burger. And it creates a unique experience which drives customer loyalty. I can't go across the street and get the Goodfella burger. The only way I can get this burger is at Near's Tavern. So that's our 5S framework: strategy, structure, suggest, sell, and story. And I wanted to finish by giving you actually a couple of actually cool case studies that will kind of make you think a little bit different about this as well. Specific problems that these restaurant groups solved by re-engineering their menu. So this is Toast Coffee and Kitchen. They have 5 locations on Long Island. They're a full-service breakfast concept. And their challenge was, with high turnover and many of the employees being part-time, the staff struggled to confidently recommend signature items. So this is a picture of their 3-ring circus, which is their signature item. They said, this is the item that we really want to promote. If someone's going to come here for the first time, we want them to try this. The other problem is the menu didn't support the server. So the menu was not wired properly to be consistent with the goals of the business. So it was no different than an untrained employee. And that resulted in a blind spot for the business. So with neither the wait staff nor the menu promoting popular items, ordering decisions were left to chance. So the strategy was, again, following the 5 S's, a clear, organized layout, which reduces the learning curve for new hires. So now new hires can use the menu to not only answer questions from diners, but maybe answer questions that they might have as well. We also put in built-in upselling opportunities. So we suggested add-ons, suggested substitutions and pairings, premium toppings, side options. And now with the menu backing up the servers, they feel a little bit more confident suggesting upgrades without sounding pushy. Finally, the menu acts as a script. So no matter who the server is, the guest is getting the same consistent experience. So the brand story and the culture is preserved, and the customers are delighted across all locations. And the result is 90 days before the menu rollout, the number of orders for the 3-ring circus was 6,356 across their 5 locations. And the 90 days after the menu rollout, it was 8,858. So it was a 40% increase in the sales of that signature item, which was 2,502 more orders. And again, to kind of go back to the beginning, knowing what the strategy is when you're re-engineering the menu, they told us, look, we really want to drive sales of our signature items, and our main item is the 3-ring circus. So that gave us the success metric to measure against and also to design against. And the last case study I wanted to show you is for Taproom. They have 9 locations and growing on Long Island. They're a full service kind of sports bar restaurant. And what they found was their challenge was as they expanded further from their home location, their nucleus, they were seeing a decline in sales of their most popular item, which was the tap room's famous mussels. So they tried promotions, they did internal store competitions, but the dish just would not sell as they got further and opened up in new markets. And the result is that the brand culture weakened, and customers in new locations weren't recognizing mussels as central to Taproom's identity. And the mussels were really what put Taproom on the map, and it's what got them to grow in the first place. So the strategy was to convert the mussels into a standout item. So as you can see, this acts as an eye magnet. We have the illustrations, and it really takes a prominent space on the menu. We also rolled out limited time offers. So the Drunken German mussels in the fall. So these LTOs, both in store and online. And this helps keeps the dish fresh and exciting across locations. And the last thing we did was we married it to an already successful night, which was Monday Night Football. So now it's Mussel Mondays. You can go watch Monday Night Football, get a mussel deal with a free beer, and it kind of gets people into the mindset of trying this signature item. The result was the 90 days before the menu rollout, they sold 726 orders of the mussels. And in the 90 days after, they sold 1,978. So it was an increase of 172%. So an enormous, enormous increase in the sales of mussels. So I think that's kind of the case study that really brings it all together, is basically having a strategy in the beginning and then engineering around that strategy and then measuring the success. So I'm going to open it up now to Q&A. I'm going to take a little drink of water, and feel free to fire away with questions. You can unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat if you'd like, and I'm happy to kind of go deeper on any specific part of this. Reagan says, great info. Appreciate you doing this. Thank you, Reagan. I also owe you an email. I have that in my inbox. All right, if there's not any questions, the last slide here is you can scan this QR code for a free menu review. I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time about their menu. You kind of see what makes us tick. You know, you can email your menu over. We can set up a time, kind of go through what you have and look for those opportunities to kind of increase the profitability and sales of your menu. So you can scan the QR code. That takes you right to my calendar where you can book a call. You could also email us, support@mainstreetmenuclub.com, or you can call and text us at 631-837-2344. And I'm going to hang around here just for another minute or two in case anybody has any questions. But I guess we can stop recording. And then if
I only had one quick question.
Sure.
We have a multi-page menu.
Sure.
So we have what you were describing as a bad idea, a brunch, a cocktail menu, a wine menu, a dinner menu. And so when you try to reduce the size of your menu, is the only way to accomplish that to get rid of items, or what is the process that you use to consolidate and make it smaller?
A great question. I think there's a lot more space to be utilized than people realize. I think we get that question a lot. People say, I can't possibly see how you're going to fit this all into one sheet. And sometimes that is the case. But a lot of it is like the font that we select. I think selecting a font that is a little bit more compact, yet still readable, is important. And also, like, looking at how the existing space is used. I know Jenny's on here. She's our lead designer. If you want to give any insight, Jenny.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it also has to do with how people are ordering, or when these menus are being given out? So you said you have like a general food menu, and then you have your drinks, desserts probably, right? And then any other option like lunch, brunch, stuff like that.
So we have a brunch menu, a
Mhm.
food menu, a cocktail menu, a wine menu. And
Gotcha.
so we used to hit people with all these pieces of paper.
Mhm.
I wasn't liking the way that was going, so
Right.
we put it all into one. But so
Mhm.
now you have to flip, pages to get and try to make it into something that had a semblance of an order of how things go when you sit down.
Right, right. Like the custom.
Cocktail, wines, like that.
Mhm,
But it
mhm.
is still a lot, um, a
Yeah,
lot.
one thing I see is like so combining like the food with the drinks makes a lot of sense, especially when people are first sitting down. But I'll always recommend like having a separate drink menu for like if they want to order it later on. Like you don't want to carry the entire menu book back to the table. So maybe having like a smaller insert that just has the wine list, or if you're big on cocktails, has like all the cocktail lists and
Mhm.
stuff. And that could just be like a smaller insert that's just a little bit easier to like carry around like mid meal or mid, than being at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it also depends on like the space, how much space you have at the restaurant. Like, are the tables big enough to have, everybody like sitting down with a big menu book kind of thing? And like, yeah, it's hard to say exactly, to give like specific recommendations, because like every restaurant is really unique.
Sure. No, I
So
was just wondering what the process would be to.
Yeah.
yeah, but I usually I would always recommend like having a version of the drinks and having also a version of like the desserts as like separate items that you can just kind of
Yeah.
bring back, leave on the table, and it won't be really cumbersome.
Yeah. Or for desserts, we make our own gelato, and people usually like to take a little walk to the display case and decide what they're gonna
Um,
have.
yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, that's
we
cool.
tried
Like,
putting it in writing, but they still want to go see it.
of
So
course.
we don't put it in writing anymore. Which,
Oh, okay. It's more
yeah,
interactive.
yeah,
That's cool. That's a cool idea too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sometimes we'll do like the little table tents too. So if it's the cocktail list on the one side, desserts on the other. So now it's like a subtle reminder throughout the course of the meal, that don't forget about dessert, and it also comes off the menu. Because again, that's a big thing too, is having to bring the entire menu back, or
Right.
the wait staff has to recite what the options are, which again, it
Yeah,
goes back to that training. And if they're part-time or new, it's a little bit
yeah.
tricky.
No, we have 18 flavors most of the time. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
Do they rotate a lot? Like, you have like seasonal flavors and stuff?
yeah, we rotate them. We make them in-house, so we just whatever the
Oh,
mood is.
that's delicious.
Thank you so much.
Sure, sure.
Right.
Anybody else has questions? Otherwise, we're going to actually put a recording of this online as well and send it to everybody. So that should be a good, hopefully you were hanging on to my every word, just in case you missed something.
Yeah, I got disconnected there, guys. I'm sorry about that.
No,
No
no, no
worries.
worries, no worries. I
My
wasn't
my
talking
phone
to anybody
my
specific.
phone died. Little embarrassing. My phone died halfway through.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Jenny, you know that my computer doesn't get good service in the office, so I can never connect.
Yes, yes, that's okay.
Sorry.
Well,
Oh,
again, you'll get the recording, so you can.
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, a
most
lot of good
people.
stuff there, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Most people sign up and then they're just too busy and then they watch the replay. So, you guys kind of get the it's just
Bye.
us, the intimate
Yeah.
experience, but we'll have
Yeah.
the replay.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. So I guess I'm gonna hop off if nobody has any more questions, and then look out for some follow-up emails from us with the replay, and then the next time we're trying to do a